Hey, welcome back to Mind Your Biz. My name is Seth, and you're, of course, watching Mind Your Biz on YouTube. You might be watching us over on Odyssey, but regardless, make sure you hit that thumbs up, make sure you are subscribed, and you have notifications turned on. We're at the brand new home for Mind Your Biz. So if this seems like a new location, if you see a different subscriber count at this channel, there's a reason for that. Do your part, hit that subscribe button, tell a friend, and make sure that the new channel, well, that it lands the way it's supposed to. Today in the Creator Highlight series, I'm very pleased to be joined by my good friend. I guess you may know him as Hack Crypto. You may know him as Steve McGarry. I just call him Steve. But yeah, Steve, welcome to the channel.
Thanks for having me. It is great to be here in this new home.
Thanks. I know. It's the crazy thing about virtual spaces is we're like, I still kind of feel like I'm looking at a webcam and talking into a mic. Doesn't matter if I have a digital avatar or, you know, augmented reality. Yeah. But yeah, nevertheless, somehow we keep growing, right? The revolution continues. But Steve, right. I'm so glad that you had a chance to carve out some time. We've been threatening to do some collab media for a while. And I mean, gosh darn it, we made it happen. We're here. Look at us. This is great.
We're here.
Questions that my audience is going to be interested to know about Steve McGarry, aka Hack Crypto, aka the various other names that you go by and the various other hats that you wear. Tell the Mind Your Biz audience about Steve in a nutshell, maybe in 30 seconds.
Yeah, sure. So I majored in economics in college, and after that, I was walking through Cambridge, Massachusetts, and saw a sign that said Magic Internet Money. That was the wizard, and it was all messed up, and it was the early Bitcoin meetups that were happening in Boston, and went there, met a bunch of people, caught the bug, started a company, moved to San Francisco. That was a peer-to-peer lending company because I really liked the concept of peer-to-peer. And after diving deep into Bitcoin, really thought that peer-to-peer was the way to go. That company exited. I sold it to Max Levchin's company, Affirm, the consumer finance company, in 2015. After that, dove fully into crypto and was obsessed with everything that was peer-to-peer. Really loved the concept of staking when that really started taking off. A lot of DPoS concepts, masternodes, all that good stuff. Got heavily into content creation, just like the man, the myth, the legend right here interviewing me, Seth. I got into that because my parents were asking questions, actually, about what crypto was. And I said, okay, well, I'll make you a short little video on my iPhone. And that turned into YouTube, and just started making a lot of content about basics around the crypto economics of different projects, and just talking about the basics to describe how it works. And that kind of grew, started a company that became the 8th largest landowner in Sandbox, fast forwarding to 2021. And started a company last year called Sandstorm, and that is what I am the co-founder and CEO of today.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so awesome. First off, I think you might be the only person in the current sort of crypto content creator cohort, that was some fun alliteration, that previously had a successful tech startup and exit in Silicon Valley. I might be off, but you might be the only person that fits that description. So it's a rare treat getting to hear from you, getting to see that basically you started your content creation journey on a whim. I wasn't aware of that your parents were the reason that you were like, okay, you need to explain why I don't have a job or a real job. That's awesome. So yeah. Let's talk about the point at which, because you mentioned what you did before getting involved in cryptocurrency full time. What was the point at which you realized there was so much professional, financial, social, and just sort of, I guess, like just all around too much gravity for you to escape the pull of crypto, and you knew that you had to stay in? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. And with peer-to-peer lending, where I really started with the first kind of fintech full-blown startup, you know, living in Mountain View in San Francisco, doing that whole thing that you mentioned, the kind of cookie cutter startup experience, I realized that we were trying to give students loans from investors to go through coding boot camps. So we were trying to teach them how to learn programming. They could get jobs at boot camps, very low risk profile, and they pay back their loans. Regular institutions aren't interested in small transactions. They're not interested in $1,000 loan. They're interested in 5-figure, large loans, and they want to move debt as much as possible. And that startup was that catalyst for me, where I realized, like, wait a second, why can't someone get a $500 or $1,000 loan? And it's just because there's not enough meat on the bone for institutions. Like, there's not enough origination fees to pull off of a $500 loan.
Oh, and is that because of, pardon the interruption, is that because of all of the associated baggage and overhead of the legacy systems that exactly, you would view that as not being enough?
Exactly. Yeah, there wasn't enough depth to those loan sizes, and that to me was wrong. I just couldn't wrap my head around, like, okay, if somebody really needs a micro loan to either, invest in their business or invest in their education or whatever it is, it just felt wrong. And that was the initial like hook that I couldn't get away from, where I was like, okay, well, on-chain transactions, this is possible. Microtransactions is possible. And the, institutions that have 20 middlemen sitting behind a scene, underwriting them and doing all this kind of craziness, and they're taking fees, and there's all this sort of middlemen behavior taking place when somebody literally just wants a $500 loan. It's ripe for disruption. And I saw that and said, okay, well, I want to be part of this. I want to be part of helping that movement happen. And, that was long before DeFi summer hit once upon a time, but it eventually sort of translated into that. So that was sort of my falling into why it was important to me.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so weird. I mean, you've mentioned it, a couple of trends that I mean, for me, because the last couple of years have been the crypto news cycle and the crypto development cycle has been so fast and furious. I'd almost forgotten entirely about like micro lending becoming such a big focus of tech, and then prior to that, also the coding boot camps being such like a cottage industry. Well, I mean, not cottage. I mean, it really, really ballooned into a whole lot more than just a cottage industry. So at one point, I think the total spend there was approaching 10 figures, right? It was a lot at a certain point, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was big, and it, I think, got swallowed up by a lot of other companies, and that was sort of how peer-to-peer lending ended up, unfortunately. Like, I was really in that from 14 to 15, when it was just meteoric rise. You had Lending Club, Prosper, all these huge companies starting. Mom and dad could go on there. Mom, dad, bud, and sis could go on there, deploy some cash. Somebody on the other side could get it, and they'd make a 10% return on their money. And it was just this really cool, euphoric time. And then banks came in. Banks came in, wrote scripts, scraped all of the, class A, B, and C's off. So mom, dad, bud, and sis went from making 10% down to 5%, and then, just regular old returns. And now it quickly became peer to bank behind the scenes instead of peer to peer. So I think that there's all these sort of things that happen over time, but eventually the bank kind of works its way back in there. And it's a troublesome thing. But you're right. Boot camps took off, and now I think a lot of big like universities own them.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just like you mentioned, there's a bit of a cycle to these things, and it seems like it is the nature of power to sort of congregate and maybe even centralize. I know we're very cautious not to use that word in this space, but the nature of power and wealth is, unfortunately, it eventually aggregates and congregates. So, man, I mean, we could, as you know, we can go off on a really big tangent on this interview if we're not really careful here. But to keep to the main thing, let's talk more about Steve and Hack Crypto. That was kind of the point of no return for you then, was figuring out that whole, like, okay, peer-to-peer is there's real need here, and there's real cause and means for disruption here. And it seems like that's kind of what's kept you in, is the prospect of it being, I don't want to say for little guy, but for normal people to just benefit on both sides, right? To be a benefactor and to be a beneficiary on the other side of a given transaction. What have been some big wins and milestones that you've hit both from that first endeavor, now getting into Sandstorm and some of the stuff that you've been working on more recently, what are some things that make you really proud of your time in crypto so far?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important to always look back, and like you said earlier, tech is moves so quickly that often you just sort of say like, "Oh, that happened," and then move on to the next thing, and you don't really give yourself a pat on the back or do any sort of celebratory dance. And I think that there's a lot that has gone on that I am proud of, but I do kind of always go back to just the basics of educating people. Like, how many people have I gotten to actually get a Ledger wallet? Like, how many people have I actually onboarded into the space and that sort of enjoys talking to me about it on a regular basis? And that, from a personal level, was always really important to me, because that's kind of how I started, with like my parents asking me questions about how to get in. So that's in the hundreds of people that, I've manually onboarded. But from a business perspective, I think a lot of this is around the education, because I've been obsessed with education, as I just mentioned, for a very long time. So with Sandstorm, the current company that I'm the CEO of is basically trying to educate and onboard people to build in the metaverse. So we have 2,000 builders on the platform, and we connect them with brands. So the whole idea of being able to educate people on a new skill set and then get them work is such a beautiful thing to me, in this whole sort of virtual environment where people are going to be moving into working just like how you and I are talking right now. It just makes logical sense after the pandemic, and everybody sort of is getting it now. But I really feel proud of bringing all of these people in through our live streams. We do 5 streams a week with tutorials and basics of creating wearables, different assets, and things like that in the virtual world. And after that, they can get gigs from brands that want, a wearable done in various different virtual worlds. And I think that whole little supply chain that we've developed is just really, I'm really proud of that. And the team that's been able to put it together with me is really world class. So I think the best is yet to come, of course, but proud of the people I've helped onboard into the space, and met a lot of really great friends like yourself throughout the years, where we've all been sort of tight knit in a way. But yeah, proud of the network, the people I've onboarded, and the new company.
Awesome. Okay, so it sounds like, yeah, the through line is that it's always been for the culture, which is, it's phenomenal, man. You haven't sold out yet. Good for you. It still has a soul. Steve still has a soul. Audience, there you go. That's the good news from this interview. So I guess the last couple of questions would just be like, what are some upcoming big dates? Maybe not just for Sandstorm, but for anything else that you have in development right now, things that you're excited about that, as of the time of recording, would be in the future for the audience to look forward to. What are some things that you think that you will be proud of in the future?
Yeah. Yeah. So part of what we're trying to do with Sandstorm, with connecting brands and builders in the metaverse, is we're partnering with virtual world platforms, and the open metaverse being what's on chain. Like, you have things like Minecraft and Roblox that have existed for a very long time, but there's no sense of ownership within those worlds. And now, with everything on chain, we're focusing on these sort of decentralized kind of open metaverses. So we're partnering directly with these worlds, and we're going through grant systems. We just got a $120,000 grant from Decentraland to help builders create assets within there. So we're giving away $10,000 a month to create assets in there through contests. We're also giving away 10,000 sand a month, because we're partnered with Sandbox. So $20,000 a month going out to people to learn how to build and, create their Sandstorm profiles, share their work. And I think there's a couple more virtual worlds that we're working on that we are going to announce big partnerships with this year, that some people may know, some may not. And it's not going to come out until Q4 of this year, but those are going to be big, I will say, because it's going to be, with this open metaverse concept, everyone needs content created for it. and there's big budgets going into that. So if you are watching this and you want to learn, definitely there's a lot of opportunity coming to the open metaverse through grants and things like that we have. But I would say next 3 months, we're going to be announcing a couple more of those big partnerships to basically pay people to create assets and participate in creation.
That's awesome. Well, I might be front running by showing this interview to my kids first. So, audience, you've been warned. Like, sorry, there's a 12-year-old somewhere that's hungrier than you. Just deal with it, I guess. So, like, jokes aside, I don't know, like, if that factors into the business model, or whatever else. But since that's coming up, potential for really big announcements in Q4 of 2022. I'm looking forward to it for sure. For the audience's benefit, Steve hasn't divulged any kind of like insider information to me. I was joking before about front running. I don't know who these groups are, and I mean, he's keeping his fiduciary obligations, straight by not talking to just friends about it. So like, yeah, like you have to say this stuff in today's world. Like, otherwise people are like, well, it's more insiders getting ready to dump on us. No, it's not what's happening right now. But that's really exciting. I'm looking forward to hearing those announcements. I'll get them the same time everybody else in the audience does, so I'll be tuning in. But the big question is, where in the world, where in the web should we go to tune into these announcements? And is there anything else we should do when we get there?
Yeah, so sandstorm.co is the website, and you can go on there. You can get verified if you go through like a quick 3 or 4 step process to be a builder. And once you're verified, the URL is nft.sandstorm.co. That's where you can see the thousands of assets on there that builders are creating. And there's also a new concept that we rolled out on the 1st of August called Build Proposals. So you can literally see proposals that brands are listing for you to get work. So for example, we have 4 active listings right now on nft.sandstorm.co, where you can go and see how you can actually bid on work in Sandbox and Decentraland. So you could get an opportunity there. And those are the 2 places. And follow us on Twitter, Sandstorm Meetup. And that's where you can get involved.
Awesome. Okay, so audience, also for your benefit, everything that Steve just told you to go and check out will be available as a convenient link in the description of this video, so you can just click and check that stuff out. Steve, I really appreciate your time. Let me ask you one last thing. Was there a question that I should have asked that I didn't?
Is there a question you should have asked that you didn't? I think the question you should have asked but didn't was, do I think the Ethereum merge is going to happen? And I do. I do. I think it'll happen, but do I think it'll happen next month or this month? I don't know.
Ooh, all right. So casting some doubt. I'm gonna. Now I kind of feel like I need to delay this video until after September 15th, just to see how it plays out. And jokes aside, like, they have a specific number of hashes left on the mainnet before the beacon chain is scheduled to happen. The merge is scheduled to happen. So I think, you and I both know blockchains aren't like metronomes. They're not perfect timekeeping machines. So does that mean September 15th exactly? No, but I think it will be mid-September. I think it's going to be pretty close. I think they're going to hold themselves to that date. And I think that a lot of the ICO bag holders, they have been reeing for years, right, at the core developers at Ethereum to be like, all right, get us the proof of stake. We want the security rewards. We want the consensus rewards. Get the miners out of here. So, I think they're not just saying this to say it. I think it really is on track, and I think that this thing is, it's on rails. End of the line is coming really soon. Like, it's just gonna happen sometime mid-September is my take on it.
Yeah, and you gotta love the hype in the space, even after such a big collapse. You gotta love it. You gotta love the momentum.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Well, Steve, thanks so much for your time. Audience, check out all the links that Steve mentioned before. Follow him, of course, directly on Twitter, and the other links that you see to his YouTube channels down in the description of this video. He is a gem, a hidden gem, in my opinion, still in the YouTube content creation scene, because he still makes time to connect in this way, in addition to building all the other stuff that he talked about. So don't mistake his kindness for weakness. Don't mistake his humility for a lack of strength. strong content always coming out of Steve. So please go follow him everywhere you can. Steve, thanks for your time, man.
Thanks so much, Seth.